This is the official EFL Podcast with Mark Clemmit.
Hello everybody, welcome to the official EFL Podcast with me, Mark Clemmit, and we are certainly not short of things to talk about on this episode. Gareth Ainsworth finally takes the plunge and moves on. Sheffield Wednesday equal a 6-decade-old club record, and Stockport County's revival continues at pace, to name but three. Plus, we've got the Carabao Cup final to preview. Good job we've got one of the EFL's most inspirational players of the modern era to guide us through it all.
The pressure is on for both clubs, and for Newcastle, I see it as an opportunity, a bit of a free hit, because I don't think they'll go into it as favourites, but they'll know how important it could be for their long-term success.
And we'll take a trip to Kent to flesh out another of the EFL's great stories.
Andy Hessenthaler and Kenny Jackett coming in have been two of the best signings, in my opinion. Two guys I know extremely well. Extremely pleased to get them in. And we've just gone from strength to strength.
It's the official EFL Podcast. Yes, we loved having him on earlier in the season to share his own inspirational story. And as he covers the EFL as part of the BBC Squad Goals, we couldn't be happy to welcome back Joe Thompson. Do we need to explain once again for anybody that's at a game or consuming EFL football in other ways what Squad Goals is? Just because I like to see your career expanding, bring you as much football as I possibly can, because you're a bright young starlet of the broadcasting scene, in my opinion.
Oh, too kind. No, for me, Squad Goals it's for the fans. It's by fans of the EFL. And what we do on a weekly basis is try and get as many goals and as action to you as fast as possible throughout the week across the radio. So I thoroughly enjoy it, and long may it continue.
I mean, I've got to ask about fan expectations. I don't want you to bite the hand that feeds, but in my opinion, they've got ridiculous, Joe. There are only 3-4 prizes in every division. There are some places that clubs are trying to avoid, but everybody's repositioning of where they think their club should be in football's hierarchy, for me, it's just gone crazy the last couple of years. Do you get any sense of that?
I think it comes with society, that instant gratification for doing something well, expectations like you mentioned there. And then ultimately now, when you go and order something, you can have it here tomorrow, but that's not football. So it's a process like many managers try and reinforce and reiterate. And you have to be patient. And like you say, there's only so many that can win.
Yeah. Do you know what? The other thing that worries me is the join up too, because, all right, fans might not like a particular manager, but force him out the door. But every time a management entourage, for example, leaves, and as a result, a series of players that they've signed that have to leave the club, the money that is leaving their precious football club is at times absolutely crazy, you know. So there is a consequence that hits the bottom line of the club they support.
Yeah, and I bet you a lot of fans don't actually think about it like that. They're more looking at the results and things not going right. Like you say there, when managers do leave, there is consequences and ramifications. And ultimately, because they've signed deals, that tends to be financially. And it's like any player. When you sign a deal, you know that that's what you secured. But you do have those ambitions and aspirations to try and kick on. But if the worst comes to the worst, that's what you're entitled to. That's the contract, and it is what it is.
Yeah, exactly. Just a few random thoughts to get us underway on this episode of the official EFL podcast. Joe, I do need to warn you that towards the end of our conversation, there may be a couple of questions about your beloved Rochdale coming up. I mean, I just wanted you to get in the groove. Yeah. Not having a great time at the moment. Well, I don't know about you, but I'm even though it had to happen at some stage, I am a little bit shocked. QPR are the 4th championship club to change their manager twice this season. Neil Critchley out, 1 league win in 11. The bit I'm shocked about is that finally Gareth Ainsworth's tenure at Wycombe Wanderers of over a decade has come to an end, and he has taken over at a club he played for 7 years and was caretaker manager at for a couple of years. Can you imagine the agonising that man did on Monday when the call came through about leaving his precious Wycombe Wanderers?
Well, I think he's spoken about it in his first press conferences. I mean, it needed to be something special to take him away from Wycombe Wanderers. It's a club that he's obviously had a relationship previously. I've been not amazed by the response, but it's almost been a real outpour of emotion from players that have played under him, players that are still playing under him. I saw an Instagram post of Gareth McCleary, and he said, it was a real bittersweet moment for him, because ultimately, if he hadn't met Gareth Ainsworth, he would have retired. And that just shows how important he has been in a lot of players' careers, particularly at Wycombe, because that's testament to his man management, his leadership style, and it's going to be a big miss for Wycombe Wanderers, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very rare situation that he finds himself in. A manager sitting down to do a departure interview with the club he's leaving, that there is goodwill permeating throughout the entire relationship. It doesn't happen too often in football, Joe.
No, it doesn't. And we were just talking about it before, weren't we? How there is that changes in managers happen so fast. But it's great to see that it's been done this way. It's a real element of class from both parties. And I'm sure if it doesn't go well at QPR, Wycombe will be waiting for Gareth Ainsworth for sure.
Well, I guess that's reassuring, but he will feel there's a lot of stretch in QPR, and well, he wouldn't be wrong based on what's happened this season. They were top of the table on the 21st of October, just a couple of weeks after you last joined us. They are now 34 points adrift of the top. They've only won 1 league game in 17 matches since. That is a stark fall from grace, is it not?
It really is. And you look at it, I think Michael Beale was obviously a big, important part of that, but it's still the same squad. And, it's still got the same ability within that squad, and it's got some very, very good footballers as well. So you'd be expecting Gareth Ainsworth to look at it and know that, and he would have gone in and prior to accepting the offer, knowing full well what that squad's capable of because of those results at the start of the season. And he'll just be looking to instill what he's done with, Wycombe. And if you can blend that team spirit that he has created and is special with the squad that he's got at QPR, I have no doubt that he'll turn the results around.
Joe, I'm not for 1 second accusing the QPR players of downing tools, but if they all bought into the Michael Beale vision and they had a great start to the season, and then it was reinforced when he turned Wolves down, do you think there's a psychological element of when quite soon after turning Wolves down, he actually goes to Rangers and the boys are a bit disenfranchised because there was such buy-in to what he had said, to the vision that he had for the club? Is there anything in that, do you think?
There has to be, in regards to when you look at it from a leadership point of view. He was obviously doing an unbelievable job. He created that culture, that environment, that free-flowing football as well on the pitch. And it's like anything, when a manager leaves, that then becomes an uncertain situation. And often various players react differently. Some might have been, in favour of him leaving. Others might have wanted him to stay. But that whole culture does change when a manager leaves. Because like I said at the start there, that squad is a very good squad. So for whatever reason, they've not been doing it. And we talk about momentum a lot. They had that momentum at the start of the season. But you flip it on the other side of that, and then you look at it, they've now got a momentum that they need to stop, and they want to stop that rot, because one win in 17 is not ideal.
I wonder whether Neil Critchley's been a little bit unfortunate, and the fans clearly didn't take to him because the points weren't being put on the board. But it looked inspired by QPR, a man of the same stable, had followed a similar template. But maybe it was one of those drastic changes where a reset, like Gaz coming in with a different philosophy, was needed.
Yeah, and you said it there. It looked like an ideal appointment because of the way that Critchley had set up previously with Blackpool. And he played in an expansive way that you thought would fit QPR. But for whatever reason, and only the people involved know why it's not worked, it hasn't worked. So it was time for a change. And like you say, a different style, a different direction. And I do think Gareth Amos is the right man for QPR.
Now, I need to ask you, do you occasionally have a little tipple? And it's so, what's your cocktail of choice?
No, teetotal.
Don't touch it. You don't touch it.
No.
As a result of your illness, to better aid your recovery, or as a result of being a finely honed athlete that you were?
No, so I never really drank too much. I would always have a little blowout when it was off season. But it's not really been a big part of my life. And then, like you mentioned there, when I was diagnosed with the cancer, I did look at it and think, well, this is not helping me. It's not helping me on a physical level, and it won't be helping me on a psychological level. So, yeah, I've not touched a drink for a long, long time. I don't miss it. And listen, if anyone wants a drink, I really do encourage celebrating life, but it isn't for me.
Yeah.
So what's your tipple, Clem?
Well, do you know what? I probably come full circle and stuff like that, but I just like a little glass of beer occasionally. Not pints and pints of the stuff, but a little refreshing glass of beer will do me. Neil Warnock, on the other hand, I am reliably informed, last Wednesday night was drinking Negronis in Dizzy's Jazz Club in New York. Now, at some point, a car has picked him up, taken him to, I'm assuming, JFK. He's taken the red eye back. It's landed at Heathrow on Thursday morning, where another car was waiting to drive him up to Huddersfield to be unveiled as the Huddersfield manager, have his first training session on Friday, and then take the boys on Saturday and get that all-important first win as they soar off Birmingham City. I mean, talk about immediate impact, but I just love the way, there's nothing there, is there? There's no going home to pack a bag or anything like that. He's just like, right, okay, yeah, we're doing it, off we go. And I suppose down to your local Marx's superstore to buy a 3-pack of undies.
I might regret this now, but when you were saying that there, I thought it sounds like kind of script out of a 007 movie, and then it's 2-3 points, mission accomplished. And it was a huge win for him as well, particularly after going 1-0 down. Troy Deeney after 6 minutes. It was a great response. I think he made 7 changes, if my memory serves me right.
I think when we looked at it, there were only 2 players in his 18 that actually had 1 to 11 squad numbers. Everybody, well, he had like 70s and 80s in the squad, but he did. I mean, he went for the immediate impact, Joe.
Yeah, and he's got it, and it's important for any manager that goes in to get those 3 points. It just settles everyone down, and I say that in regards to the club. It settles the owners down, it settles the fans down, and obviously it settles the players down. But he seems like he's in really good spirits. He's enjoying being back in the game, and it's great to see him in it.
Yeah, and at the same time, I'm possibly definitely overshadowed. Mick McCarthy gets his first win in charge of Blackpool. And again, I was doing the maths, 138 years of management experience between... No, that can't be right. Can that really be right? 138 years of football experience between the two of them and over 2,600 games.
Yeah.
I mean... Both clubs have clearly gone for those that have seen it, done it, and bought the T-shirt.
Yeah, they have, and it fascinates me from an ownership point of view in regards to when they're setting out that strategy, because we've spoken about it already that some get appointed in that kind of new era of managers, that new emotionally intelligent manager that seems to connect with the players more on a level. But then you've got the old school and the old brigade, and it's then trying to get that balance, and it's also got to be right for the squad. So yeah, they've gone for experience, and I feel for Mick McCarthy. Obviously, got the win. It was an important win, as they all are. But then it was followed up with a defeat last night. So he'll be looking to obviously put things right on the training ground and get things going again on Saturday.
That said, this relegation battle is now fascinating. Wigan, unbeaten and picked up half their points under Sean Maloney. Cardiff City hadn't won in 12 in the league, have won their last 2. Rotherham were worrying me a little bit, and we had Bailey Wright, their on loan centre-half, with us last week, and then they lost in the game that followed, but picked up their second league win in 13. It's no inch, no quarter down there, and you could argue that most teams are doing what they need to once they're in that fire pot, once they're in the eye of the needle and they absolutely think, right, we're getting dragged in here. Teams are really digging some results out, Joe.
They are, and it's often when they're flirting with it or they're just above it. It's always that line, that invisible line that we all know about and can see on a week-to-week basis. That is when you start creeping towards it, you start, right, we need to get into gear here. A big win for Rotherham. It really was. Great to see one of my former teammates, Ollie Rathbone, on the score sheet. I messaged him saying, how's captaincy? He said, I'm enjoying it, and that's what I like to hear, because it's difficult for those teams in and around and down the bottom of the Championship, because it comes with immense pressure.
I know you're a busy man, but occasionally on moments like that, and obviously still very much having contacts within the dressing room, do you get the occasional pang of, I wish I was still sitting in a new position just in front of a back four, stroking the ball around? Just, do you still get occasional pangs that you're involved?
I miss Saturdays. There's no getting away from that. I don't miss training. I don't miss being shouted at for making mistakes. But I do miss that competitive side. I feel like I've got a good balance in regards to still obviously heavily involved in football. Still get my little fix of football on a Tuesday night and play 9-a-side. And that's enough for me. It's intense. It's a good hour, and it's a very good standard as well.
Do we need to discuss the other end of the table? Because over the space of the last week, Middlesbrough have narrowed that gap on Sheffield United. Sheffield United, I mean, they've narrowed it down to 4 points as it stands at the moment, although Sheffield United obviously have a game in hand. Sheffield United's next 6. Watford at home. BR. Who's BR? Who's BR, for goodness sake? Watford at home. Blackburn Rovers, of course. Blackburn Rovers away, Reading away, Luton at home, Sunderland away, West Brom at home.
Big games.
They are. I mean, there'll be a lot of Borough fans thinking, right, we're on a roll here, we can catch them. I mean, when you've had 2 10-match unbeaten runs, which Paul Heckingbottom's team have, can a blip be beneficial because it allows you to press the reset to get you through to the end of the season?
Yeah, for sure. And because they've done it previously, they know that they can do it again. So they won't panic. They'll obviously digest and try and process what went wrong and how they can then go and implement that at the weekend. But yeah, a blip can always be good. It's a bit of a shock to the system. But like I say, it's part and parcel of football, and you're not going to win every game, but it's how you react from those losses what really matters.
Yeah, it's going to be a fascinating end to the season. Blackburn Rovers fans, don't start emailing in and complaining. I'd written a little abbreviation here to say, because I've got a pad covered in all sorts of notes. So don't be offended. I wasn't saying who's Blackburn Rovers. I was saying who's BR. And frankly, Joe Thompson, you were no help whatsoever with
Well,
trying to help me out.
I was going, it could be Borough, it could be Birmingham. So I'm just going to stay out of that one.
All right, that's absolutely fine. Your fixtures this coming weekend should tell you as well, from 4th to 9th in the Sky Bet Championship. The teams are separated by just 3 points. Early kickoff, Coventry entertaining 8th place Sunderland. Luton are in 6th, go to Birmingham. Burnley now 16 points clear of 3rd. They are the next mission for Neil Warnock's Huddersfield. Norwich in 9th entertain Cardiff. Wigan travel to Preston in a local derby. Gareth Ainsworth's first game in charge of QPR is against his hometown club and his boyhood idols, Blackburn Rovers. Reading, who are 10 points above the drop zone, entertain Blackpool. Sheffield United entertain 7th placed Watford. Millwall in 5th go to Stoke. West Brom, who are now in 10th, 4 points behind that pack I just talked about, having lost 3 times in their last 5 matches. They've got Middlesbrough. Then on Monday night, Rotherham go to Swansea. Let's go into Sky Bet League One. I love the connection with history at any time, Joe. Sheffield Wednesday, 8 league wins in 9. 19 league matches unbeaten, which equals a club record that was set between December 1960 and April 1961. I don't know whether you've ever been in and around a club that's been close to a club record. I just love that sense of join up between the different generations that, you know, still after all those decades of football, Sheffield can still put together a run like that. It's magnificent.
It is, and that's credit to Darren Moore and the squad that he's assembled. It's got some obviously very good footballers. I'm thinking, you know, your Barry Bannums, your Michael Smith, and obviously Josh Windass as well, who were all in the goals at the weekend. And I covered the League One for squad goals, so it was interesting to see them go behind so early, and I was wondering how they were going to respond. And they were terrific in that second half in particular.
Yeah. MK Dons, who they were playing, actually, they have the best points percentage gained on the road of any team in League One, although obviously that got turned over. We have to keep having to say this, but we have to admire Plymouth Argyle's staying power, don't we? All right, they're going to play seesaw a bit with Sheffield between now and the end of the season, but they just keep going.
They do, and you know, you look at the fact that they've done it in the Papa John's Trophy as well. Sometimes that can derail what teams do in the league, but it's going to be an interesting second half of the season, particularly in League One, because those two are going toe to toe, and when they've obviously played against each other, it's been very close as well. But Stephen Schumacher should be very, very proud of his team and what he's created.
And it would be remiss of us not to talk about how Wycombe Wanderers might do in the absence of Gareth Ainsworth. Matt Bloomfield, at the time we're recording this week's episode, has an agreement in principle to leave Colchester United, where he's had his first 6 months of his management career, and return to the club where he spent 2 decades and played 558 games as a player. I mean, you can see why they've done that, can you not? Both the owners, probably Gareth Ainsworth, will have had some suggestions there as well. I mean, it's as obvious as anything in football.
It's fitting that the baton is passed on to Matt Bloomfield, who no doubt will have learned a lot under Gareth Ainsworth as a player and part of his coaching team, and then he's gone and he's managed to turn things around for Colchester as well. So they got 15 huge games, starting off at Shrewsbury, who have obviously done very, very well. 6 wins on the spin prior to last weekend when they got beat off Accrington. So that's going to be a tough task, but it's a game that I'm sure once Matt Bloomfield signed everything, he'll be raring to go, and he'll make sure that his team are raring to go, because he will know some of those players and he will have got a very good relationship with some of those players, and he'll be using that and leaning on that, because it's a great time because Wycombe are doing quite well. So it's often managers going in when it's not going so well, but he'll be just looking to use that momentum that Gareth Ames has made.
Yeah, 5 consecutive league wins. Your fixtures in Sky Bet League One this coming weekend. Early kickoff on Saturday for Oxford United, just a point from their last possible 21. They entertain Bristol Rovers. Barnsley against Derby is 6th, entertaining 5th. Bolton are at home to Port Vale. The leaders, Sheffield, go to Charlton. Ipswich in 3rd, there at 3rd bottom, MK Dons. And possibly a tough game for Plymouth as they go to Peterborough, 9 points off the playoff places in 9th. And as Joe says, Shrewsbury in 8th, entertain Wycombe in 7th. Sky Bet League 2, Leyton Orient through their blip, 4 wins out of 5. I wanted to mention Stockport County. Just to remind everybody, 2nd of consecutive relegations, which took them out of the league, was in 2011. 11 years as in non-league football. Didn't start this season brilliantly, despite being the overwhelming favourites. Only won 3 of their first 13, but have suddenly clicked. It's 13 league wins in their last 19, and they are a point off an automatic promotion place. And the way they're going, Joe, it feels like they can't not make it, doesn't it?
It does, and you spoke about it there. It wasn't a great start for them, and I think that may have come with the expectations and the pressures of being tipped for promotion. But they've gone about their business in a real smart way, under the radar slightly. I live quite close to Stockport, so I can feel the buzz being created in and around the town. And you can see more and more fans are going up to Edgeley Park, and they're making it a fortress. And they've got some very good players as well. And I think what Dave Challoner has done is very similar to what he did with Hartlepool in regards to he's clearly got a style and a way of playing, and it's clearly working. So I wouldn't back against Stockport getting promoted.
Yeah, 9,500 they had for their win over Stevenage at the weekend. Do we feel a little bit for Colchester United? They take a chance on a rookie in Matt Bloomfield. They'd only won 3 of their first 21 matches, and then suddenly, again, things had clicked and they'd won half of their 12 games. Robbie Cowling, the owner, quite gracious with Matt Bloomfield's departure, but you feel for them a little bit that they did seem to have found a little bit of stability and movement in the right direction, only to lose the man at the helm.
Yeah, you have to, because they're still in and around it. They're looking over their shoulder at the moment, but it's not ideal time for a manager to be leaving, particularly with the fact that he had managed to turn it around, and they looked like they were, starting to climb the table. So it'd be interesting to see who comes in at Colchester. I'm not sure who would take the job, but I'm sure there'll be many that will apply for it, because it's an interesting project down there. But it's going to be a difficult one because they have obviously lost Matt Bloomfield.
Sky Bet League 2 fixtures this coming weekend. Stockport, who are in 4th, go to Barrow. Colchester begin life without Matt Bloomfield. At home to Northampton Town, have dropped to 5th. 3rd place Carlisle are at Crawley. Leyton Orient, the leaders, go to Grimsby. Mansfield against Salford is 6th v 7th. Stevenage, who suffered their 2nd league defeat in 15, entertained Tranmere. I've missed one out alphabetically, Joe. It is Rochdale going to Crewe. 6 points from safety off the back of 7 league defeats in 8. I don't know where to go with this. Do we praise all that was achieved over the last decade and a bit and the heights scaled? Do we say the uncertainty that surrounded the club now for a few years is catching up with them? I mean, I feel for the supporters. It's a great football club.
I feel for the supporters as well. And it's difficult for me to talk about because I've not been to a game because of work predominantly for probably say over 12 months now. So I don't feel as connected to the club as what I once was. And we was fully aware when we was having the successes in League One and you playing against the likes of Southampton and your Sheffield Wednesdays in front of 25,000, like we were punching above our weight. And those were magical times to be at the club. And unfortunately, what's happened over the last few years is not ideal. But a game against Crewe, and I don't like using the term, it is a 6-pointer. And you need to start picking up wins because teams in and around them, I'm thinking like your Hartlepools and your Colchesters, they have picked up a couple of wins and they make all the difference. You look at it, you get 4 wins out of 5 or 6, things can start to look a lot better. You've got to start with getting the first win. And it stops now for me. And a big game against Crewe that they're more than capable of winning, but they've got to go out there and do it.
I'm not going to turn the screw anymore on you, Joseph, because I've got to ask for your thoughts on the Carabao Cup final. Manchester United against Newcastle United. And what I love about this final is it's really important to both. I mean, I know any team going into the final will want to win it, but Erik ten Hag's revival of Man United has been pretty breathtaking. And obviously, we know what it would mean to those Newcastle fans to get a first trophy since 1969.
It can be the catalyst, can't it, for the next 10 years? I was really fortunate to cover one of the under-21s games for United on Monday. And we spoke about that what's being created is special, but it's Manchester United. It's all about silverware. It's all about success. I think the loss of Nick Pope is huge. Because he's been pivotal in that defensive unit and all those clean sheets that they've kept. And the pressure is on for both clubs. And for Newcastle, I see it as an opportunity, a bit of a free hit, because I don't think they'll go into it as favourites, but they'll know how important it could be for their long-term success if they did win the Carabao Cup.
Well, listen, obviously Eddie Howe has lifted expectations at Newcastle. You could argue if he goes into next season without a trophy, there will be, far greater demand to keep competing at the top end of the table. You put a trophy in that cabinet, it probably buys you 18 months to further put the roots in place he obviously wants to create the mega club of the future, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I think if you put that trophy in the cabinet as well, for potential signings coming in the summertime, now you're looking at Newcastle in a different light because they have won something and they've gone toe-to-toe with the big clubs week in, week out. So it's going to be an interesting and fascinating final. I know who I'm rooting for.
I wonder who that is. I wonder who it was that you do bits of work for. That you do a few bits of work for. I wonder who it was that you began your fledgling youth career with, Joe. Are you going to the game?
I'm not going to the game. I am going on holiday on Saturday evening.
Are you able to tell us where you might be going on holiday, Joe?
Yeah, of course I can. We're going chasing the sun, and we're going to Mexico. So me and the family are going to Mexico just for a week. Get those melanin levels up because I'm in dire need of some vitamin D. So I'm going to enjoy it, but I'll make sure I watch the game for sure.
Yeah, I was going to say something cliched like bring me back a sombrero, but of course, Mexicans don't really wear those anymore. They just sort of sell them on stalls at the side of the road to catch tourists like you, Joe Thompson. It's been a pleasure. Great to talk to you, Joe.
Pleasure as always, Clem.
The official EFL podcast with Mark Clemmit.
Let's finish off this week by reflecting on one of the EFL's great revivals of 2023 so far. It's in Sky Bet League 2, where Gillingham's record at the halfway point of the season read 2 league wins and bottom of the table, but 5 in their 7 games since mean that Neil Harris's team are, in the words of M People and Heather Small, moving on up. I really felt for you, because there was this kind of waiting game going on, wasn't there, to get the new owner over the line, Neil? And I can't imagine all the different emotions you went through in that run up to Christmas.
Yeah, I'm glad you started off, Clem, by saying about so far, because it is so far, obviously, and which is key. I keep reminding the football club and the fans and the players we're on a good run. But yes, the emotions. It's been tough. It's been a tough period for the club. Tough period for the fan base. Ultimately, it's their club. I'm just a custodian. It's going to be here it's been a year now. Could be here for another year.
Well, wait a second, Neil. You're a human being as well, aren't you? You would feel emotions. You would be there thinking, are we going to get this over the line? I'm the one that's having to go out with a tin hat on every weekend and try and get games in. So there's you involved in this too.
Yeah, and I appreciate that thought process. Look, Paul Scally was great. He kept me in the loop all the way. We knew it was going to be, unless a new owner or investor came in, Paul was very clear when I took the job 12 months ago, it was going to be a really, really tough ride. If last year when I took over, the budget would have been bottom of League 2 and probably close to the bottom of the conference as well. And we nearly stayed up. So it was a miracle. So I knew this summer was going to be really difficult. There was no grey areas. Paul was brilliant. He was just doing the best he could at running the club. But fortunately, the Gallinsons have come in, Brad and Shannon, and they're wonderful people. And they said to me when I first met them in November, look, what you're going to need. I said, look, it's not millions of pounds now. It's just about trying to bring in 4 or 5 senior players that can come in and help us straight away. But it was tough, middle of November onwards, knowing it could happen, and just the longer it went on, the tougher it got for us, to be honest, and the further away we seemed to get in the league table. But Andy Hessenthaler and Kenny Jackett coming in have been 2 of the best signings, in my opinion. 2 guys I know extremely well. I'm extremely pleased to get them in. And we've just gone from strength to strength.
But I guess during a period like that, where one owner's got an eye on exit and dealing with all that kind of stuff, there's a lot of scrutiny on the leader, isn't there, to set the tone, to keep everybody trying to hold body and soul together?
Yes, yeah, and it's difficult because when you're losing, you're the one. I'm the one that goes and stands in front of the press. They want the answers, and I've not always got the answers. For off the pitch, let alone on the pitch. I'm the one who has to front it up. I'm the one who has to stand in front of the players. I'm the one on the touchline, and then we understand as managers that's part of the game. Results fall on our shoulders. The outside world have an opinion, and majority a sensible opinion, especially at Gillingham Football Club. But it can be difficult in the modern world. There is a blame culture in our society, isn't there, Clem? That's the way kids are brought up these days. So I understand that, and I led from the front. Didn't shirk any questions. Was honest as I possibly could be, and we're now getting our reward. And I'm pleased we come through that tough period, and we certainly want to keep winning. That's the main aim over the coming couple of months before rebuilding again in the summer. Yeah,
I mean, I kind of started this conversation with Joe Thompson a little bit earlier on this week's episode of the official EFL podcast. It's just that whole expectations vibe, entitlement vibe, and obviously, Gillingham fans after those 9 seasons in League One and relegated at the end of last season, will see themselves as well below their natural level. The fascinating thing, though, Neil, is there will have been stuff that you couldn't say as well, because I don't think fans realise just what goes on at football clubs that doesn't come out.
Yeah, well, Clem, in your position and your knowledge and your connections with us all, certainly managers-wise, that yes, that's the case. And I try to be as honest as I could, but obviously towing the line as well. And it is difficult because you do need to get messages out, and you have to try and be clever in the way you do it, but respectful as well. And sometimes you just have to front it up and accept the criticism on behalf of everybody to come out the other side. And certainly a great learning curve for me, 8 years as a manager now. And this last 6 months has certainly easily by a million miles been the toughest that I've had to go through. But I did know there was light at the end of the tunnel if I stuck at it. And I've been fortunate to have good people around me as well. There's a lot of good people within the club.
Listen, you've mentioned the new owners, but do we also have to look at the past and what Andy Hessenthaler achieved as manager, took the club into the Championship, to realise the potential of a county with one league football club who's reached a much higher level in the past? There's a lot of gears to go through if the circumstances are created correctly.
Yeah, it's a great point. And when I sat with Brad and Shannon back in November, and they asked me the question, why should they buy the club? And it certainly wasn't a sales pitch for me. It was just a really honest conversation, a great conversation, a great, very fast 3-hour conversation. And I said that the potential was huge. And I went back to Hesse's era, when Hesse played and when Hesse managed the club. And there is potential. It's the only club in Kent, and Kent, as we know, is a vast county, population, space. The football club has got so many good ties and so many relationships to grow with as well. And it's a no-brainer for me. The amount of players you can attract catchment area is ridiculous. And it's just been broken for a period just because of COVID and just lack of, unfortunately, lack of investment over a period. And it's great to see it moving in the right direction again. And there is opportunity for it to grow, and it will grow. And Brad and Shannon, they want to invest. They want to build infrastructure. They want to invest money in the squad, the facilities, develop younger players to come through. So it's exciting times.
Was there an immediate sort of sea change over those few weeks of January as well, when you are bringing in absolute EFL names, Tom Nichols, Timmy Dieng, Ollie Hawkins, George Lapsley, etc., where suddenly you're under a different sort of scrutiny? Because the tag will be thrown, won't it? Oh yeah, Moneybags Gillingham now. They've just gone and bought their way out of it and things. So it's a completely different situation for you to have to manage.
It is. And what I've said to people, and again, been acutely honest with everybody, is that we've gone from probably bottom budget in the division just to be able to compete with top 10, top 12 sides. We've not gone and spent £2 million in a transfer window, put us top of the budget, and we still wouldn't make the top 10, Clem, in the league with what we've done in January. But what we've done is recruit very smart. We've recruited players that we feel can get us to safety this year and help us build a top 7 side next year upwards and get us out of the division over the next couple of years. And that's where planning, organised, good people, sensible people come into play. And as a manager, when you've got players on the pitch that you can change tactics, change formations, press a bit higher, drop off a little bit deeper, change from building from the back to play direct. When you can get that message on vocally or through a piece of paper to your captain to pass on to the lads, and they can do it, then you're in a good place as a manager.
Yeah, I'm loving this chat. I'm loving you seeing you so bright, because I did worry about you those 2 or 3 months in the road to Christmas. I should share with anybody that's only listening to the audio version of this, not the video version, that we're talking to Neil on his day off in his man den. He's been allowed it with the sort of the history of his illustrious career all behind him. I want to talk to you about those 8 years as a manager, or rather, I guess I wonder how tough it is out there. I was a little bit shocked last week. I had Ian Evert on, and He said, despite the revival of Bolton Wanderers, he said, look, I'm not going to do this forever. It really takes it out of you. There's no way I'm going to be doing what Roy Hodgson did or Neil Warnock has been doing. I mean, just how all-consuming is the game at the moment with all those elements we've already reflected on now?
Yeah, I wonder, like with Knocker coming back in at 74, and yes, he'll only come in short term, I guess, and then sort of step away, and then maybe coming again next year. Which is really sensible.
Probably. Well, there's no doubt about that.
No, but it's really sensible at the age, and I just wonder if like Big Mick, if Ray, if Arsene Wenger, Alex Ferguson, Neil Warnock, would they, if they'd started in the era that me and Evo started in, like now, with the scrutiny of not just the media, because it's always been there, but the in-depth scrutiny of the media now, but it's the social media and as I touched on earlier, a blame culture in society. If they had started in this era, would they still be doing it 30 years later? I'm not so sure. I certainly will not be doing it in 20 years' time, Clem, that's for sure. I won't be doing it for too much longer because it does consume you. It does eat your life. It can be a really lonely place at times. And every job is tough in a different way. Just League Two, for example, and Richie Wellens top of the league. But his job will be difficult. When I speak to Rich, his job can be difficult. And Richie's having a great period at the moment. They will get promoted. They will win the league, and they're a great side. And he's built really well there over a period of time. But next year will be a completely different challenge for him in League One. He knows that, and that could become more difficult. So you have to take the good times while you can, because the tougher times in Football Manager are always just round the corner. You're only as good as your last 4 results, really. But it has completely changed. The game, the landscape has changed over my 8 years, for sure.
I mean, when I look at the amount of clubs that this season alone have changed their manager twice, there might be an implication there that a manager is being used as the scapegoat too much, and there are other endemic problems behind the scenes at some of these clubs, or the root and branch strategy of the way in which the club is being mapped out.
Yeah, I think that's very clear, isn't it? That the managers, we live and die by our results. Clubs can make decisions. Managers won't always sign, or head coaches won't always sign players, but it's the manager that loses his job. Doesn't happen in many other industries in the world. When you look at it, that the people fail and the leader goes. So look, we understand that as football managers, head coaches. We understand that when we take jobs. The privileged position of being the leader of the group, that if it doesn't work, then you're next on the line. If you're not prepared to accept it, I say to people, don't do it. And I'm always clear with young managers coming through that if you're not prepared to accept that and the loneliness of the job, then don't do it. Because you will at some stage, you will lose your job. Yeah.
I mean, if it hadn't turned around and you had left Gillingham, could you have started to look in different directions, even at your young-ish age of life?
Yeah, possibly. Yeah, there's loads of different challenges out there for people. There's loads of things I'd probably want to do in the game still, away from management, and one day might get across to doing that. Hesse's just come in as head of recruitment. Hesse's coming, I think 56, 57, something like that. He's coming up. I've not done him disservice. He might be slightly younger, but Hesse's coming at sort of mid to later 50s. He's coming as head of recruitment, and he's going to be bloody good at it. Kenny's came in at just 60 odd, coming to be director of football, and really enjoying working with him. So there's different roles out there to be done in football. Management is the scrutiny one, isn't it? Let's be honest.
Finally, can you guarantee me you are not 100 years plus? And the reason I ask this is there is another Neil Harris out there who managed in the 1930s, took short-term charge of Swindon and Swansea City, and one very credible stats site out there has managed to bang that Neil Harris with you together. Yeah. So it looks as though you have been in management for 90 years so far. You might want to look into it and just get his career separated off from yours. But they banged you both together there, mate. I looked this morning, I went, did I miss? Did Neil Harris really go have a couple of games in charge of Swindon? And then I looked closely and it was like the 1930s.
You do know the rivalry between Gillingham and Swindon, don't you? Obviously not a geographical one. It is a past rivalry from years ago from a playoff game decider at Selhurst Park, before and after the game. So Swindon might not be my next port of call, let's be honest.
Yeah. So there would have been no truth in that, even if the dates didn't correlate in the first place. Mate, it is fantastic to talk to you.
And you, Clem.
I can only see part of your man den going on around you, but I'm going to assume there are even more glorious shirts from your illustrious past. Keep up the great work. Thanks for talking to us.
Great talking to you. Top man.
That is it for this episode. A big thank you to Neil Harris and to Joe Thompson. If you've enjoyed it, please do give us a 5-star rating, press the subscribe button and share on your socials. If you'd like to get in touch, our email address is podcast@efl.com. That's podcast@efl.com. My name's Mark Clemmit. Join us again soon for another episode of
The Official EFL Podcast.